Sure,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Hello, I'm talking to you from my home in San Francisco, California, where it's actually about 5:30 in the morning. So good morning on my end. I hope everything is well in Vietnam. I'm going to talk to you briefly about Stanford. My background is that I did work as the assistant dean of admissions at Stanford, where I directed international admissions to the university. Now, Stanford's a little bit different than Yale in many ways. Its location is here in California in the heart of the Silicon Valley. And I think that's important to understand. The reality is that Stanford is existing in the center of a highly innovative, highly entrepreneurial part of the United States. And I think this is reflected in Stanford's mission statement, where they say quite clearly that they're looking to admit students who are interested in advancing fundamental knowledge and cultivating creativity and accelerating solutions. That's the key thing. I think that what Stanford is all about is admitting kids that are going to be problem solvers, innovators, business starters, things like that. So in that way, Stanford's, I think, its mission statement is reflective of Silicon Valley, and it's reflective of kind of maybe the California economic dynamic. Stanford is also a little bit different than Yale in the sense that Stanford is made up of three schools, and engineering is easily their most selective and, in some ways, largest undergraduate program. That, of course, is different than Yale. Stanford's got this big, robust, incredibly famous engineering school. They also have a humanities and social sciences program. And then the newest school is on environmental sustainability. So Stanford's made up of three schools that create the university. Now, most importantly here, you've got a philosophy that Stanford says, look, a student can declare their major anytime during their freshman or sophomore year. So not only is Stanford looking to admit problem solvers, but I think they're also looking to admit curious students who are going to explore, do I want to be a lawyer? Do I want to be a doctor? Do I want to be an engineer? Do I want to work on environmental sustainability issues? Unlike many universities in the United States, like, for example, Illinois or Bonnet-Champaign, who admits by major, when Stanford reads an application, they don't really worry too much about what you, the applicant, is declaring as a major. Rather, what they're doing is they're looking to admit highly curious students. When I worked at Stanford, there was always kind of this tremendous balancing act that went on in the sense that, on the one hand, I was looking to admit specialists, people that were strong in math, chemistry, the future computer scientists or engineers. On the other hand, I was also trying to admit what we called at Stanford fuzzies, meaning kids that were just very smart, very curious, but at this time really didn't know what they wanted to do or study. So you had kind of the balance between specialist and fuzzy in the admissions office. And that was something that we took into account when reading applications. As an admissions officer, I had to recognize or acknowledge that the program of study was acknowledged in my read, but it was never defining. I didn't get caught up in what the student was trying to major. Rather, again, I was looking for evidence that the student was highly curious, and that this was a student that was exploring ideas. The admissions process at Stanford after you submit, well, this is important. As the assistant dean of admissions at Stanford, I did not have complete control over admissions decisions. In reality, the review process involved me sitting and individually kind of reading your application. And then as I broke down your application, I would then determine if I was going to take this student into what was called committee, where everyone talked things over to make that decision. Now, it's very important to understand this concept of committee, because what that means is that in committee, everything was discussed and read out loud. Your essays, your recommendation letters. It wasn't just a matter of looking at your grades. We were looking at everything and kind of going back and forth, almost like it was a court of law and you were on trial. We were kind of discussing whether to admit or not admit the student. In terms of the admissions process and those individual reads and what it took to get into Stanford, I really think that